Hey, welcome back. Steve here, and today I'm talking with Jennifer Serravallo, the author of the New York Times bestseller, The Reading Strategies book and the Writing Strategies book. Oh, this is so cool. Our talk today is focused on her latest book, The Reading Strategies book 2.0. What an awesome conversation. So much to learn. And then before you go, have you been to my website, stephenmiletto.com? You can reach out to me by leaving a voice message there. Just click on the mic at the bottom of the page. Or you could subscribe and follow my website. Or how about listen to all my podcast episodes and listen to my free audio class on classroom management. And by the way, there's more to come of that soon. And maybe read my blog or look at my YouTube videos or so much more. What do you think? Could you stop by and maybe also leave a review? That would be so awesome. Thanks for listening. All the best and enjoy the show.
It's the Education Podcast, your favorite show, with lots of groovy guests and they share what they know. So crank it up to 10 and let your neighbors know that here's another show with Dr. Steve Miletto. Teaching, learning, leading K12. Teaching, learning, leading K12. Teaching, learning, leading K12. With Dr. Steve Miletto.
Jennifer Serravallo is the author of the New York Times bestseller, The Reading Strategies book and the Writing Strategies book, which have been translated into Spanish, French, and Chinese. These and her other popular books and resources help teachers make goal-directed responsive strategy instruction, conferring, and small group work doable in every classroom. Her newest titles are the Reading Strategies Book 2.0, Teaching Writing in Small Groups, A Teacher's Guide to Reading Conferences, Understanding Text and Readers, and the assessment and teaching resource Complete Comprehension for Fiction and Nonfiction. Jen is a frequently invited speaker at national and regional conferences and travels throughout the U.S. and Canada to provide full-day workshops and to work with teachers and students in classrooms. She is also an experienced online educator who regularly offers live webinar series and full-day online workshops. Jen began her career in education as a New York City public school teacher. Now as a consultant, she has spent the last 15-plus years helping teachers across the country create literacy classrooms where students are joyfully engaged and the instruction is meaningfully and individualized to students' goals. Jen was also a member of Parents Magazine Board of Advisors for Education and Literacy. Jen holds a BA from Vassar College and an MA from Teachers College, where she has also taught graduate and undergraduate classes. Today we're focused on her book, The Reading Strategies Book 2.0. Jennifer, glad to have you on the show. Say hi to everyone.
Hi, listeners, and hi, Steve. Steve, you have a really great podcasting voice.
Well, thank you so much. Appreciate it. This is...
I see your Buzz Lightyear hanging from your microphone. Is he your inspiration for your voice? Or no? Yeah?
Well, in a way, yes. I'm a big fan of Buzz Lightyear. And
to infinity and beyond, right?
There you go. There you go. And there's nothing better than the Toy Story stuff where Buzz and Woody are interacting. And one of my all-time favorite lines is... Buzz looking at Woody and going, "You're mocking me, aren't you?" It's like it's one of the best lines ever. But love the cartoon. So anyway, yeah, if you were to look around my office, you'd notice like there's a giant one behind me, and there's a bunch all over this place, and it all actually has something to do with when I was a principal. But I can save those stories for another time. So, but good stuff. So yes. To infinity and beyond. We're good. So let's start with something I read about you. I understand that you were a fourth grade teacher in Brooklyn, New York. One of the things that you've noted is that you were given the keys to the classroom and little else in terms of books, materials, or support. What was something that you learned from this experience that you'll always keep with you?
Yeah, my job in Brooklyn was my first teaching job, fresh out of college. And I think it was eye-opening to see how chronically underfunded public schools are, and how teachers are often expected to pick up the pieces with their own time and their money to make it work for their students. It should not be like this, but that was my first experience. And my principal, who I went to for help, after my really rocky first few months of my first year teaching, suggested that I take Valium and start smoking cigarettes to help me through my first year. As a principal, Steve, is that good advice?
Oh my gosh. Wow. So for lots of my colleagues out there who are principals who are cringing right now going, what the heck was that all about?
Yeah. So, I mean, you talk about no support, and I just was floundering like so many first year teachers are. I luckily found a colleague down the hall, asked her to be my mentor, and that partnership with a colleague saved me. It really saved me. And I spent a few years at that school and then moved on to another school in Manhattan, where there was much better support from leadership, right? A principal with a real vision for the school, who was a real instructional leader. I had colleagues that met with me every day at lunchtime to plan and look at student work and make ideas for next steps. I had a coach who was, a district funded coach who came into my classroom and helped me with whatever I wanted help with. And then we had outside consultants come in and model in our classrooms. And it was night and day. Same population of kids, 100% free and reduced lunch, right? Title I schools, lots of English language learners. The kids weren't any different. It was the amount of support. And so one thing that I will always take with me, and I think what fuels my work today, is how critical ongoing professional learning and support is for teachers.
It's so powerful. And, just a note, that's just crazy. Unless, of course, he had a thing with a pharmacist who got kicked some money to him for getting those Valium. But what a powerful lesson to learn and understand that we need all that help. I mean, it's funny when one of my earliest, I hate to say this, but I kind of think it runs in some types of zones or whatever. I had a principal say to me when he was interviewing me for the job, I pretty much had a feeling I was getting the job, and he said something that made me go, I wonder if this is really a job I want to take, because he said to me, before you go, I just want to make sure that you stay away from the snake pit. Now, I was young. I mean, I'm like, 23, 24 years old. And so what went through my mind is, they got a pit here that has rattlesnakes in it or something. I mean, just like, and what
was he talking about? Like the teacher's lounge?
Yes, he clarified it for me.
Yeah.
I must have had some look on my face. Fortunately, he said it before I said something stupid. And he said, I'm talking about the teacher's lounge. He goes, that place is just there's a bed of just terrible nonsense and things. And he said, just stay away from the snake pit. And just a note, that gentleman was moved at the end of the year. So.
I mean, it just speaks to leadership, right? And yes. I think that's another big lesson from your experience and from mine, that good leaders make a really big difference. And you've got to support your teachers, and you've got to respect your teachers. And it's got to start there, because that trickles down to the children, right?
So much so. All right. So you created something called Literacy Strategies Consulting. Talk about why.
Well, I mean, as I was mentioning, the support I needed so desperately in the classroom and that I eventually received, it was just so critical. And to me, staying in this profession at all. So not only my own experience, but research backs this up, right? High quality, ongoing professional development for teachers is one of the most effective ways to impact student achievement, right? So, but I guess when it's good, when it's good, job embedded, ongoing, right? Practical, focused on teachers' practice, direct, aligned to the goals that teachers have for themselves and that leadership has for teachers. And so the Literacy Strategies Consulting Group is really just a group of my colleagues who have worked with me for many years. And when I got more requests to do professional development in schools than I could do myself, I started calling on colleagues of mine who know my work inside and out, and who are just really great teachers of adults too, because that's really important. And so we travel around the country. We go in classrooms with students. I get to visit them on site in different classrooms around the country. Coach them, give feedback to the schools. And we're really just there to provide the same kind of support I talk about in my books that we provide to readers and writers: goal-directed, strategy-based, really practical, really helpful. I do that as well, and my colleagues do that as well with teachers in our professional learning.
Love it. That's awesome. All right. So, we're going to start talking about some of the stuff that you support, and especially this book that's is very recent. And but before we do that, I mean, I've had the privilege of attending sessions where reading coaches are using your books. And, it's funny because I'm kind of geeky right now, because it's cool meeting you, because I've had your book, been in classes, watched it being used and instructed. And, what's it like to know that your work is being used to help teachers help kids all over?
It's honestly just an honor. The books I write are the books I wish I'd had when I first started teaching. This kind of book didn't exist, and it would have been so helpful. And some of the books I write are books that I wish I had as I continued developing as a teacher to keep me, curious and interested, engaged, and learning in an ongoing way. So, I try to make my books immediately practical because I know how busy teachers are. And I try to share ideas that I know work for children, not just because they're research-based, but because I or my colleagues have used them with children many times over. So it's just an honor to support teachers because they are doing the most important job. So supporting them in any way, it's just an honor.
Well, it's so cool. So it's, because I can't basically go anywhere without at some point having some conversation with somebody and they have your book. So I think it's neat, or talking about some of your resources. So kudos there. So let's chat about some of the current trends in reading and the literacy landscape. What's going on out there? And we're going to use this to lead us into talking about your newest book.
Well, one thing that's going on that we really need to not look away from is the trend to ban and challenge books. It is a real threat to literacy and to democracy. Another trend of what's happening right now is that we have a big reckoning to make sure that we are improving literacy outcomes, especially leading the way with resources that are research-based. And I'm all for that. But we can't simultaneously say we want to improve literacy outcomes and we care about reading and then remove all the books from the shelves. Those two things don't go together very well, right? So this research practice connection and the call to kind of align research and practice more closely is, I think, really important and really exciting. I actually started my own podcast to try to help with this too. It's called To the Classroom. And I interview researchers and then have post-interview conversations with my colleagues and other teachers, administrators, coaches about what we can immediately try out. Because I think sometimes we're siloed, right? We've got the university professors conducting research. Sometimes it doesn't go beyond a journal or a conference for researchers. And then we've got practitioners who are really doing research every day in a way, right? They're trying different lessons with children, seeing what they respond to. And sometimes researchers need to hear from teachers. And I think sometimes teachers need to hear from researchers. Actually, one of my guests on the podcast that I interviewed recently, Henry May, he leads this institute to connect research and teacher practice. And he has all these ideas on different ways to do that, practical ideas for ways to do that. So I'm excited for people to hear that episode and try some of them out. So yeah, I'm all for this, this call to really examine our practices, really examine what we're using in the classroom and make sure it's got a really strong research base.
Very cool. And, just a note, I've subscribed. I'm looking forward to listening to the first episode.
Oh, awesome. Thank you.
So that will be done today. And it's so cool. And it's awesome that you're doing that and leading discussions as well, because you make sure then as the podcast host that you can drive a talk where you'd like it to go, which is cool. So and just another note, one of the things that's, kind of wild about all of this is that, yes, I can attest to, having long time ago been a kid in a classroom where I'm pretty sure there was no book with, hey, here's some thoughts about how to do this thing called reading, with the kids. And instead, not to cut out the really good ones with loop them all together or something, but because there were those who did really great jobs. And then there were those who, I'm pretty sure that, there's just some thought that it just happens. we do whatever we do and they'll be fine.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if your experience growing up was anything like mine, but there was definitely, a teaching of the text. Like we read a lot of stories and then we were asked questions at the end to prove that we'd read it. But there wasn't, I don't remember anyway, a lot of instruction into how to get ideas or how to understand or how to slow down your reading and really make sense of it or how to think critically about what the author's saying. The how, that's what this, the Reading Strategies book, the first edition and the second edition, that's what it's about, is equipping teachers with the language to tell kids how, to give them steps, procedures, make the the work that we do as readers, often invisible, right? We're, as the teacher, we're proficient readers, and we're able to infer and visualize and decode the words and read fluently. And it's happening in our brains, and the kids can't see it. So we have to explain it to them in a way that they can understand so that they can try it too. So that's what these strategies are. They're just step-by-step how-tos. Very cool. And that's, that's something that, I came from parents who both read and made sure that we had more than our share of books, constantly buying. And so I started reading at an early age. But one of my favorite memories, and this is where I'm going to go back to that comment, the sarcastic comments between Buzz and Woody that we brought up earlier. It's kind of funny because I'm not going to mention the name, but there was this box that was very popular that they would use the box and you would go through and it was color coded and you would yeah, I had that. I remember it. You would read certain things. Are you avoiding saying the name? I remember the name of it. Yes, I was. I don't know if I should say it or not, but it's just funny. But it had 3 letters that were the initials. And but what you would do is you would read the story and then you'd pull out the card and you would answer the questions, take the little test, and then as the teacher graded it, you would move forward. And I love doing that because I moved up into the high levels or whatever. And I'm not sure that I really knew that much about reading, but it was cool advancing through the colors. Yeah. So. But, and some kids, just give them a lot of text to read, whether it's cards, with short text or books, and they just they become better and better readers. But most kids need explicit instruction. Right. I think it's some way along their way, whether it's to not just read for the plot and think more deeply about themes and symbolism and archetypes, or it's kids who need more support with decoding, or it's kids who need more support with fluency. At some point along the way, a lot of kids are going to benefit from explicit teaching, and that's really what strategies are about. It's very cool. So, I'm going to right now, when you ask me a question about Buzz, because I'm now going to have to tell you the story because we're getting into areas that really fit. Because and my kids would go, "Oh, you asked him the wrong question. He's going to have to talk about Buzz." So I was looking when I was a principal. I was looking for something to try and have the kids and the staff and parents and understand a little bit about what we're trying to do. As a principal, I went to places to make change. All right. I marketed myself as a change agent, and we had to take care of stuff. And so I'm looking for a way in which we can express this that's not like, the typical stuff, like thinking outside the box or, all those different trite phrases. And I was watching, sitting there with my kids watching a video version of a videotape version of Toy Story 2. And by the way, I'm extremely excited because even though we're not sponsored by Pixar or anything like that, there's a 5th one coming out. So, but I was sitting there watching and this scene came up and I went and I rewound it. My kids thought I lost my mind. It's like, wow, that's cool. And so as a note, there's a scene in the second Toy Story. Have you seen it? Have you seen the second one? Yes. Ah, cool. So I know the toys and the cartoon, it is a cartoon and they're not real. So before I step into this land here, but so Buzz and all the toys are going to rescue Woody from the toy collector who's sending Woody to Japan, and they have to go through his toy store. And on the way there, Buzz gets curious and he sees this huge aisle full of Buzz Lightyears. And as a result, he gets too close and a toy Buzz reaches out, grabs him, ties him up, throws him in the box, and then joins the toys. And the other toys figured that there's something wrong with Buzz because suddenly he's starting to act like he's forgotten that he's a toy and he thinks he's a space ranger. And so they go up in this elevator to try and go rescue Woody. And while they're in the elevator, he realized he's struggling to climb up the wall. He's holding on to this rope that has the other toys. And he suddenly says, "What am I doing?" And he says to everybody, "I'm going to let go of the wall." And they're like, "No, don't do that." And he pushes the button on his belt that's supposed to make him be able to fly. And he lets go of the wall and they fall, but the elevator saves him. And he thinks he's flying and they go up and they go rescue Woody. And my point is that, because where I'm getting with this is what I used to tell people is that whether we're parents, whether we're teachers, whether we're kids, we make excuses about why we can't do things. And those are like those elevator walls. If he would have held onto that elevator wall and said, "This is why I can't let go of this." So what if Woody gets sent to Japan? I got to take my time going up instead by letting go of that wall and those excuses. We were able to work with people, and it's
what you're talking about just kind of really fits with it. So sorry about the story, but the point is that it really fits well, because I think, the more strategies we understand we have, because kids are different. I mean, they have different baggage and things like this. And so we get rid of those elevator walls and be able to go about helping the kids move on and progress and be able to find the love for being able to read. So
absolutely. And, and I told you, I taught in New York City public schools. The cap on class size in New York is 33, but sometimes they'd put a couple extras in there to waiting to have it be grieved and then eventually reduce the class size. So I had very large classes. That's the point. Many of my kids had IEPs, had different intervention support in addition to my classroom. Many were English language learners, so they were learning English alongside learning how to read and write. And I had, in a third grade classroom, I probably had kids ranging from at the beginning of the year, like first grade level through fifth grade level, all in the same class. And sure, you might have a curriculum that gives you a scope and sequence aligned to standards for that particular grade level, but you've got to teach the kids in front of you. And when you were marching through curriculum, teaching kids retelling strategies, and meanwhile, some kids still need support with learning the words, you've got to address that need. Or you've got students who are, been there, done that with retelling, and they're able to do higher level inference. You've got to challenge them too. So having the flexibility and the ability to meet kids where they are, have a toolbox. That's really what these books are. It's just a big toolbox of ideas, acknowledging that there's such a range in every class, and kids are coming in with all different strengths, all different kinds of needs, and they deserve a teacher who can be responsive, and teachers deserve materials that help them do that.
So powerful. It really is. And so this is going to make me ask you, because as you're talking about all this stuff, I can hear the wheels that were turning that made stuff happen. What was that original, that thing that happened that's made you go, I got to write this book?
The first edition of the Reading Strategies book?
Yes.
Back in 2013. So back in 2013, there was nothing like this, right? There was no huge book of different ideas and different strategies. And it was actually teachers who were asking for it. I just listen to teachers. This is what I always do. I listen to teachers, I hear what they need, and I try to make it for them. So I would have all these experiences. I told you I travel around, I go and visit classrooms, I model teaching, I'll be modeling teaching, and I'll have a situation where off the top of my head, I come up with a strategy and I teach the child. And afterwards, the teacher, the lesson was great, but where'd you get that strategy? Isn't there a book of strategies? They kept asking me over and over again. It took me a little while before I was like, I think teachers need a book of strategies. There's also this amazing principal. Her name's Gail Ryan. I worked within a school district in Pennsylvania. And at that time, I had just published a resource that had strategies in the back of the book, just as examples, maybe like a few dozen. And she said, Jen, she was pointing to the back of the book. This is what you need to make a whole book of just this. So it was teachers, it was principals. And so, all the best work I do comes because teachers ask for it and I listen and I try to make it.
I love,
and I'm a avid home cook. I love cooking. And I don't know if you know this cookbook author, Mark Bittman. He has a bunch of books like how to cook everything fast, how to cook everything vegetable, how to cook everything slow cooker. And they're not like literally everything, but they're big. They're big, comprehensive books. And so I actually often look to cookbooks for inspiration in terms of format and style and design of the book. So I was looking at his cookbook and I was like, that's what I think I'm going to do. It's like a how to teach everything kind of a book. It's not literally everything, obviously. It's not a curriculum. It's not a phonics program. It's not literally everything, but it's a lot of good ideas all packed between two covers.
That's awesome. I love that. And I love the fact that you have that inspiration of the cooking to make it work, because that's awesome. Because that's just as a note, that's something I've never learned to do. And I had a father who was amazing in the kitchen, and I should have paid a little more attention to what he was doing, especially when he made these different sauces that he made. But that's cool to know. I
have strategies with that. If you want some strategies, I could help you. One strategy to improve your cooking is to subscribe to a meal kit service. So you could do like HelloFresh or Plated, or there's a whole bunch out there. And the beauty of these is they're highly scaffolded. So you've got a recipe card, and you have a picture of what it looks like done. And then you have 6 steps, always 6, with a picture for each step and really clear directions. So if you can read, you can cook.
Nice.
It's really heavily scaffolded. So start with those kits and you'll be on your way in no time.
Appreciate it. My kids are like going, yeah. he'll still burn it. So,
but no, you just watch it. Patience. Don't turn the heat up too high. Have patience. Watch it. You know what good food looks like cooked. So
yes.
That's the end goal. That's the vision. Yeah.
Exactly. See,
you can do it. I believe in you.
Thank you. I'll have to try that. Just as a note, my let's see, I burned the pancakes twice, and so my kids will never let me cook pancakes again. Generally with anything, I just basically say, it's done the way I like it. So we just go with that. That's how I meant it to turn out. And so my sons are better cooks than I am. I will have to give that a shot. So thank you so much. I like that too. 6
pancakes.
steps.
Yeah, pancakes, medium heat, see some bubbles on the surface. It's time to flip. That's your tip for pancakes.
Nice. Thank you. I'll be giving that a shot this weekend. So,
all right,
good stuff. So just want to let everybody know this is you forgot that you had tuned into the cooking show. So let's talk about, you've published now the Reading Strategies book 2.0. So what's different and exciting about this book?
2.0 means to me huge change, not a second edition. It's a big revision from the first. I just, as a writer, love the chance to revise. Some people don't like it. I love it. I love the chance to see something you've written and with fresh eyes and try to make it better. So going into this project, I had a bunch of ideas for improvement, things like aligning all the strategies to skill progressions. I had these skill progressions I published in 2018 as part of a book about conferring. Teachers love them. They're like, this is just so game changing for me to understand what I'm looking for within a goal. Love these. And so I wanted to align all the strategies to skill progression. So that was one idea. I knew it had been almost 10 years. I wanted to update all the children's literature and be really intentional about including a diverse, inclusive set of children's literature that I love, that my kids love. I knew I wanted to add more explicit links to research because I knew that's where we were going. I was making sure that everything was really research aligned. So just being more explicit about the research foundations. So all that I knew ahead of time going into it, I had big ideas for big changes. But then I have the most fantastic editor. Her name's Katie Ray. And she is my writing soulmate. She pushes me to really revision, really re-see, really rethink. She questions everything. Like sometimes we'd get on Zoom and we would debate about a single word for 45 minutes. I'm not even kidding. Like really everything. She pushes me and it makes me better and it makes the book better. So I'm so grateful to her. So just when I have a new idea, she helps me outgrow it. And because of her and our collaboration, even more changes happened. I ended up with about 100 of the 300 strategies being totally brand new, another 150 so changed, you might not even recognize them from the first edition. There's a chart on every page, just like when the first edition, but 200 of the 300 have been redone. I had amazing illustrators, Merity and Tiffany, who helped me with that. I've completely rewritten the opening chapter, which is about 30 pages, and the starting few pages of every subsequent of the 13 other chapters. So that's another 100 brand new pages right there. What else? Oh, I got to work with a research assistant. His name's Gabriel Della Vecchia. He's brilliant and worked so hard. And my partnership with him and his contributions far exceeded my initial idea about incorporating research. We ended up with more than 700 research citations across the book. And links to research on every single page. But I think it's really the skill progressions that teachers are most excited about, the teachers that are using the book every day, that the skill progressions just offer them this really easy way to see within a goal, what is the student doing now? What's the next step? And what strategies align to get me from this step to that step? So that's a long answer.
Oh, that's a great answer.
There's a lot of changes. It's a really new book. It's a 2.0. Very new.
That's very cool because it's not just the sequel, or it's not just the, it's not just that we changed a few things. And, like in the current era, lots of people will suddenly they have a new edition out and it's because they added something about computers, and I can see the newest thing on the horizon is all about adding something about AI or something like that. But no, this is really cool. And so you've talked about this just a little bit. I mean, how did teachers use your book to streamline work and find solutions for those students? I mean, how does that work? And I kind of get the feeling that we might have a little more in common here with recipes again. So tell me how that works.
It does. Yeah. Well, there's 300 strategies. Well, in the new edition, 303, I think, in the book. And it's a big book, but it covers everything from engagement, motivation, understanding how to read the words accurately, fluency. There's a bunch of chapters on reading narrative text, like plot and setting, character, themes. There's chapters on expository text. There's a chapter on writing about reading, on having good conversations. There's a chapter to help kids pre-alphabetic before they're even reading the words to engage with the pictures and do comprehension work off the picture. So all this to say, it's very broad in its scope. So I needed ways to make the navigation super easy. So the first navigation system is in the chapters. So think of a cookbook. You've got your how to cook everything. He's got a chapter on cooking fish, a chapter on cooking chicken, a chapter on cooking beef, right? So I've got a chapter on engagement, a chapter on accuracy, a chapter on fluency. So that's the macro organization. Then within each chapter, we've got a skill progression. And that kind of moves from more simple to more complex. So for example, in the fluency chapter, from reading word by word to reading more smoothly and scooping up many words, to reading with expression, to using other indicators like emphasis, like bold and italics, right? So it gets progressively more sophisticated as kids encounter more complex text features in the books they're reading and as they grow in their skill. So you think, okay, this is a child who needs help with fluency. Let me look at the skill progression, and they function like an if-then chart. So you look at the left-hand side. If the student needs this, then I'm going to teach that. So a recipe analogy, maybe like within the chicken chapter, if I have a lot of time, I might do these recipes. If I don't have a lot of time, I might do those. Or if I happen to have these other ingredients on hand, these are the recipes for me. If not, right? So you're kind of sorting from within. You're cooking chicken. I'm helping fluency, but within that, exactly what am I working on? And then each page has a really consistent structure. And that's designed to help teachers be able to flip and browse really quickly. So it's a strategy, which are those steps. The how-to is on the top of the page. Lesson language, which is like a paragraph of me explaining how I'd explain it to children, using some of those mentor texts that I told you I swapped out. Some teaching tips, little tips from the research on modifications for language learners, for students with autism, right? Things like that. There's a research link on every page that tells you the research citation that connects to the strategy, a chart on every page that you can use with your class, prompts on every page that help you coach and guide readers as they practice. So that repeated structure, it really helps teachers kind of just flip through and quickly find what they're looking for. So step 1 is to find the goal. Step 2, use the progression. Step 3, browse the strategies, and then teach. Rinse, repeat. Go back to the skill progression, check and see how they're doing, monitor their progress, choose the next one.
Love it. This is awesome. And just as a note, I've when I've been in these reading sessions where the strategist is working with teachers using your works, and they love this stuff. So it's cool because you're providing them, just like you were saying, whether it's the recipe or the rinse and repeat or it's what they've not had. And so thank you and kudos to you, because
thank you.
It's very powerful, because when you're got those ideas, if we go back to you as a 4th grade teacher, one of the things you needed was somebody to help you with some of those ideas about how to do things, and then to share that support in doing it. And unlike that principal's suggestions,
right,
you're providing much more useful tools and resources. So awesome stuff.
Exactly.
Cool.
Thank you.
I got to ask this, because you got all this stuff you got going on. If you had a chance to be a closing speaker, not the opening, all right, the closing. So the one that everybody's going to leave with some thoughts in their mind, hopefully, about what you were talking about. And if you do a really great job, that means that they are leaving with some thoughts in their mind. These are teachers that are getting ready to start the new school year. What would be something that you would want them to remember from your talk?
Well, most of all, I'd want them to be able to do whatever I was talking about. So I'm not really great at those kinds of super motivational speeches where you're like, oh, I feel so inspired, and then you don't actually have a single idea of what you're going to do next. My talks are always very action oriented. Probably you're sensing a theme here, right? My books are about strategies. This is the stuff you do. And my talks are about the stuff you do, right? So I want teachers, and again, I think it's what I wanted as a teacher. What do I do? How do I solve this problem? How do I reach this child? How do I explain this concept? How? And so that's really what I try to do, is give teachers the how. I think a theme in a lot of my talks, if that's what you're talking about, is about the importance of really getting to know kids as individuals. And, you've got plenty of supports probably to help you with the class and the standards. But I really want to try to equip teachers with practical ways to see the individual, notice what they need, and have an individual plan for everybody in the classroom. And then, of course, make that really manageable so it's not overwhelming for the teacher. So that's feedback I get from a lot of teachers, is that's just very action oriented, very doable, and very powerful and impactful for student achievement.
That is awesome. And that would be just right there with your books, too, because that, the idea that they can do as a result. And one of the things I like about your works is that it's easy to read, it's easy to understand, and easy to put into practice. So awesome stuff. And I appreciate you talking about that. We're getting close to finishing up. I got a couple questions I want to ask you that I ask all my guests. But before we do that, if someone wanted to learn more, or someone wanted to engage you to try and come be that closing speaker for whatever, or to learn more about getting to do more with the Reading Strategies book 2.0, I mean, where would you send them? What would they do?
So one place to go is my website. It's my name, jenniferserravallo.com. And you can find out there how to invite me or one of my colleagues to speak or offer professional learning for your school. You can find out more about any of my books and resources, how to contact me. There's a whole page of free resources there that you can check out. My new podcast that I talked about, I have a page now for the To the Classroom podcast. You can see who my guests are going to be and listen to the latest episode. I've got a blog with full transcripts of all the podcast episodes, and my team is going to be doing some additional blogging as follow-ups with other ideas and tips to practically take from the research conversation to the classroom. So there's a ton there. And I have a Facebook community. It's called the Literacy Strategies Facebook community. Instagram, I'm at Jennifer Serravallo. Twitter, I'm at J Serravallo. So any of those places, website, social media, very accessible. And I love talking to teachers. So please reach out.
That's so cool. And I'll have all that information in my show notes, which makes it so much easier to just, especially if you're listening to it on a phone and you just go in there and go to those show notes and click and boom, they're there at the website or on social media. Whatever.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So, all right. So last two questions I want to ask you, Jen. And the first one goes like this. How do you keep going when so much is going on that you may want to quit? And this doesn't involve getting value.
I don't ever want to quit. It's actually like a problem that I never want to quit. Like to the point where people who love me in my life say, can you take a break? You want to slow down? Like even during the pandemic, right? We're at the beginning of the pandemic. Remember how scary those days were, right? We thought the mailman was bringing the plague to our house and we were holed up in our homes. And I was even afraid to ride my bikes outside with the kids. I thought it was like flying around in the, you know what I mean? And I had my kids home. They were young at the time, first grade and fourth grade. No, first and fifth, trying to do online school. Everyone's stressed. And what do? I hop on Facebook and I start communicating with teachers. What do you need? What can I make for you? Let's have some conversations with other educators. Let's problem solve this together. So I don't know. I just have endless energy right now. I think I'll know when it's time to quit, but it's definitely not time right now.
Very cool. Very cool. So good stuff. Last question I got for you, Jen. Do you have a teacher in your past who made a difference in your life? If so, who was it? And what would you say if given the chance to say thank you?
Well, I have so many teachers that I would love to thank. I love this question. And, I've lost touch with all of them. So maybe if any of them are listening, reach out to me. I'd love to reconnect. I think the teachers that stand out in my mind are ones who connected with me, saw me, and really had high expectations for me, like Mr. Hill in second grade, who was the first teacher I remember really creating space for student voice and ownership in our own learning. Mrs. Marvullo in Catholic school, she's this short Italian woman that made us like diagram sentences on the board and memorize, who wrote The Raven?
You talking about Poe?
Oh my gosh, Poe.
Yeah.
Edgar Allan Poe made us memorize like Edgar Allan Poe poems, so I can remember his name. Sorry, Mrs. Marvolo. But she had super high expectations for the quality of the work we turned in, the rigor that she put in that classroom. Probably a lot of my work ethic and detail orientedness comes from her. Mr. Cantor, my high school drama teacher, helped me fall in love with theater. Mr. Vyeth, my high school visual arts teacher, who ran the best workshop style classroom ever. He would lift us up with specific compliments, give us clear strategies to help us. A professor in college, Dr. Janae Morrow, a psychology professor, who took the time to tell me my writing was terrible and spent time in office hours helping me make it better. And look, I'm a writer today, right? So it's the teachers who saw me, held me to high standards, that I think I just remember most fondly. And so I'm grateful to all of them. Thanks for asking that question.
Oh, you're welcome. And thank you for the great answer. That's so cool. And what's nice is that you have a lot, which is really cool. So,
yeah.
And I like that. So thank you so much for sharing. Jen, it was awesome talking with you today. Thanks so much for sharing your book, The Reading Strategies Book 2.0. What an awesome focus you have. I wish you the best in all you do.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Hey, you have been listening to Teaching, Learning, Leading K12, a podcast to help you help kids achieve their dreams. Teaching, Learning, Leading K12 is a member of the podcast network based in Canada called Voice Ed Radio. Voice Ed Radio, your voice is right here. The opinions expressed on Teaching, Learning, Leading K12 are those of the guests and host. Teaching, Learning, Leading K12 is intended to share ideas, advice, and suggestions. Teaching, Learning, Leading K12 is produced for educational purposes. Hey, thanks for listening. It would be awesome if you visited my website at stephenmiletto.com and connected with me, left a review, and listened to more episodes. And by the way, you could also share it with your friends, with your family, and your colleagues. Thanks so much. You're awesome.